Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today, we're talking to Dr. Corinne Lowe. She is an economist and professor at the Wharton School. She is also the author of a best-selling book that we'll be talking about today, Having It All, What Data Tells Us About Women's Lives and Getting the Most Out of Yours. Welcome, Corinne.
Thank you so much.
So you start the book in a particularly dark moment of your life in an Amtrak bathroom. Tell us a little bit about that moment from the introduction of your book and what led you to wanting to write this book and bring your background in data into the real world.
Yeah, so I had been studying women's kind of career family trade-offs for my entire career for 15 years. And then I found myself living in it. I say in the book, I gave birth to my son and also a midlife crisis because I believed that if I just worked hard enough, I was going to be an equal to the men at my jobs and to my husband at home. And what I found was the reality was starkly different, that, I was carrying all of this extra labor and the data told me that I was not alone. And it was kind of exemplified by this period where I was commuting 2.5 hours from my home in New York City to my job in Philadelphia. I had a newborn. And I was back teaching, and then on my commute home, there's suddenly track work on the train, and I realize I'm not going to make it home in time for bedtime, so I have to pump in the Amtrak bathroom, and I'm crying, just feeling like, oh, is this having it all? Because I feel like I don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to hear from the outside. Like, if that is my friend, if that is you, it's so easy for me to see that as objectively more than one can handle. Something's got to give in this situation. There's nothing wrong with you. But when it's you and you're in it, I think you just tend to think, I just got to get up earlier. I just got to work harder. I just got to care less. I got to fix myself, and then this will all be better.
That is so well said, because I think you feel like you're just like, I'm failing, right? Like I am not somehow able to handle this in the way I thought I was going to. And I'm kind of uniquely bad at this, or this is uniquely hard for me. And that's what led me to start looking at the data. And what I found is that, no, these are real systemic forces that were conspiring to make working moms like me feel exactly that way, because our careers are more demanding than ever. So we're trying to have the same careers as men because we know that we can, right? We're capable of having the same careers as them, but we don't have the same support that they have at home, because then when I look at the data, men's time doing housework is the same as it was in the 1970s. And even when you're the primary breadwinner, which I was, you still do more around the house. Women who are the primary breadwinner do twice as much cooking and cleaning as their lower earning male partners. And then lastly, that parenting time has exploded since the early 1990s, and moms today spend twice as much time with our kids as our own mothers did. And so when you look at all of that, then you're like, oh, that feeling that it doesn't add up, that's not in my head, that's in the data. I can see the hours, and it's just like, where is this going to come from? And what it was coming from was my sleep and my sanity. And so, yeah, I wrote the book to try to combine that personal experience and stories from other women with the data to help women feel some kind of agency. First, just to feel recognized, but second, to feel some kind of agency in actually making changes.
I'm going to quote you to yourself. You say, "We have been sold the idea that optimizing our lives means being able to do the most things in a day or have the most items in our possession. But I'd argue that the most optimal life choices are those that your future self, 5, 10, 20 years down the line, will be the most grateful for. This idea really resonated with me. And I heard a coach, someone in football, I don't remember who it was, saying it's the difference between resume skills and obituary skills. That a resume skill is like, you are good at optimizing this, and that makes you good at the next task, versus obituary skills. Like, this is who you were as a person in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And this quote really brought that to mind for me. Like, where are we putting our energy?
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially for women, where we have kind of been conditioned, like, if we're feminists, our goal is to like have the best career as possible, climb the corporate ladder as high as possible. And then if you realize that you're doing that and you're doing all the right things, but you're miserable, then part of what my book is saying is, no, actually things have to change, because your experience of your life matters. You actually feeling like, oh, this is working for me. I'm happy. I'm getting through my days. I'm not just raising my kids, but connecting with them and enjoying them. That matters. And if I look back at that period in my life, I was miserable. I wasn't happy. And so it's like, well, then did it matter that I was, on the tenure track at Wharton, that I was trying to do the right things if I wasn't happy?
I've heard this thing about think about your older self, but I've heard it often from the point of view of imagine your older self, and she's going to tell you these moments were precious. The time with your little ones is so short.
Yeah.
In the big picture, does it really matter? It's all like, it's okay. It's not as hard as you think it is, or maybe it's hard, but it won't be for much longer. But this is thinking about her and what does she want? What does she want you to have done? Which is a very different way to think about your life.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because it almost sounds like gaslighting, that we do send that message. And I've said that too, and it is true, right? So there's a piece of it that's true, that whatever's hard when you have like a baby, it's going to pass. But it almost sounds like gaslighting to be like, oh, it's okay because you're going to have good memories of when they were little. It's like, no, if you're not sleeping and you're angry and exhausted and just feel like you want to cry at the end of the day every day, it's not okay, And one of the things that I've said is, like, when I was in that period, I forgot that I was a member of the household. When you look at this fact that I was commuting 2.5 hours to my job, it was like I was making everything work for everybody else, twisting myself into knots to make it add up for, my family. But I'm part of the family and you're part of your family. So if something isn't working for you, it's not working for the family, and it actually needs to change.
And that change, I think you capture really well, as did Amy's book. It's called Happy to Help. And it's about the same kind of ideas of, when the rubber hits the road, the only person who can make it better is you, by saying more yes. And that idea is a form of gaslighting, that like there are societal things and family structures and historical patriarchal structures that are all coming. We're at the tip of that spear, and that the reaction is, now it's your personal decision-making that is really the problem. It gets very confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the message that we get. And so one of the studies that I cite that I think is really helpful to women in letting go of that idea is, they cite this study that shows that 12 years after graduating with an MBA, the 90th percentile of female earners, so think about the 90th percentile, top 10% of women, the women who are leaning in, right? They are doing it all. They're extraordinary. Their pay is the same as the men's mean. The 90th percentile of female earners is the same as the men's mean. And the reason is because they're hitting a systemic structural ceiling in their ability to earn because of the support that they have at home. And so I think when you hear that statistic, it lets you say, like, okay, this is not me then, because the top 10% of women are experiencing this. And so it's not anything that I can fix with my individual choices. And so instead, I am going to have to redefine what it all means to me. And you said, that we are given this message. You need to say more yes. And I would say my book is the exact opposite of that. It's saying we need to say a lot of no. Because being a kind of 1980s super career woman whose career is going to be the equal to not just all our male colleagues, but the best among our male colleagues. And that's the standard we hold ourselves to. And being an Instagrammable trad wife, domestic goddess at home, those are two separate full-time jobs. And they don't fit in one 24-hour day. So we are going to have to kind of pick and choose our battles. And that's what we can succeed at. We can succeed at what we need and want to live a good life with those obituary skills. But we cannot achieve perfection in both of those domains because they are not meant to add up together.
The other limit of our individual choices, there was a study in the book that showed that women were being judged, or it was being held against them, their ability to earn, because whether or not you're a parent, the fact that you might be a parent, of course, this is highly illegal, but it's happening anyway, that women's earnings and ability to get forward in the workplace, that we're being held back by this idea that we're going to put kids first, whether or not you even have kids. So it sort of underlines that optimizing your choices isn't going to fix sexism in the workplace.
That's exactly right. I love that study because my students ask me, they're like, well, if I want to have kids, is it my fault if I don't get promoted? And so that study, it's so important. It shows that actually women are discriminated against in promotions, whether or not they have kids, because they're kind of all painted with the same brush. And so your individual choices exactly cannot find the way out of the box of sexism. That box is there no matter what.
Right. And that women do have this reality. Women of my generation, I see it. It's like, well, you get your degree and then you basically have 10 years to work in that degree before you become a mom. Mm-hmm. And then you give up that career and become a social worker or whatever. Like you make this mid-career change, but that the male line kind of arcs straight forward, but that the female line goes for 10 years and then moves off in a different direction.
Yeah. And like, think about what a privilege that is that men just have this one linear path to success and unidimensional definition of success, because like no man has ever felt like a failure because his curtains weren't hung up or his daughter's hair wasn't brushed or even that he didn't get to read enough bedtime stories. I mean, I see it with my male colleagues that I'm on the road right now for book tour and every night away is so hard for me. And my male colleagues have never agonized over leaving home for a business trip. And so we have to understand that we are internalizing these two different metrics of success of career world and at home. And I talk about men's housework being the same as it was in the 1970s, right? But I think as women, sometimes in terms of how we judge ourselves, we're stuck in the 1970s too. That we're still feeling like, oh, I'm a failure because I didn't like cut the shapes out of my kid's lunch like I saw on Instagram, right?
Right. I didn't do a unique bespoke drawing to say, I utterly love you with an otter
in my
picture.
kid's lunchbox. Yes. And it's like we have got to let go of that image because that just is not compatible with also having a career outside the home. And the women who are selling it to you that this is what it means to be a mom, they aren't facing that trade-off because that is their career. And you're every bit as good at your job as they are at making that salad with like 12 different ingredients. But, you know, you have a different career.
Right. And sometimes I think some of these careers are invisible. Casey Davis, who is the author of the book, How to Keep House While Drowning, often says, when you see a laundry room that's like chalkboarded and all the containers have their own label and stuff, that is somebody's hobby. That is somebody devoting a tremendous amount of time to the way their laundry room. That's a job. And it doesn't mean it's a worthless job or a stupid job or a bad job, but it is a job. It's not just part of the landscape because somebody put it on Instagram.
Right.
That now I need a chalkboard menu on my kitchen with all of the flour containers labeled with burlap ribbons, that we've expanded so much what it looks like to be a homemaker.
Yes. And it's so funny because just as you described that, I felt that little pang inside myself of like, oh my God, I wish I had that laundry room.
We're talking to Corinne Lowe, the author of Having It All. We'll be right back. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Okay, so let's talk about this idea of utility function, because this is like one of those game changer ideas.
Yeah. So in the book, I'm trying to use the tools of economics to help you get more of what you want from your life. And to do that, you have to know, what am I trying to maximize? And so economists study firms as maximizing profit, and everybody understands that. Well, utility is kind of the individual analogy of profit. It's your personal profit function. But what makes it different is that whereas 10 accountants could look at a firm's balance sheet and they'd all say, oh yeah, that was their profit last year, nobody can say what your utility is because it's unique to you. It's the sum total of your joy, contentment, fulfillment over your lifetime. It's what you want written in your obituary. It's what you would think sitting on the rocking chair when you're 85 years old, that was a life well lived. And so it's a little richer than happiness, because utility, maximizing utility sometimes means setting a limit with a screaming toddler. It doesn't feel super like happy in the moment, but we know it serves our values. So it's a really useful concept to say, how do I do things in life that bring me fulfillment and meaning that serve my values? And as I said, the key part about it is that it's unique to you. Only you know what your utility is, because we all put value on different things. And so when you see a woman whose laundry room makes you feel that jealousy, that like, oh, I wish I had that laundry room, she gets utility probably from both doing that and from having that, more than, the utility that she gets from other areas. So when you think about, oh, somebody is making homemade breakfast for their kids, I wish I could do that. Somebody else is doing an elaborate bedtime routine with snuggles and stories every night, and I can't do that. That's because that's what's in their utility function. That's their utility function. However you want to show love to your kids, however you want to connect and spend time with them, that's your way of doing it. And the same when you see someone whose career is progressing more quickly than you. And I think about that a lot when I would compare myself to my male colleagues and be like, oh, they're publishing more than me. And then I would think about how much of a priority it was for me to be there every night for bedtime, for me to spend time in family dinner time with my kids, right? And it's like, no, this is a choice that I'm making because my utility function has all of these different things in it. It doesn't just have one thing in it. And Sheryl Sandberg, who wrote Lean In, by the fact we can tell, because she was a Facebook executive, her utility function mainly focused on career success. So then she's kind of trying to tell you how to succeed, but it's along the dimensions of actually what's her utility function, which isn't necessarily yours.
And then hers changed, wouldn't you say? I mean, in public,
Yeah.
and her husband died suddenly, and she wrote a book about grief, and the things that were important to her profoundly shifted.
Exactly. And you have to figure out what is your utility function? What are you maximizing? And then don't compare yourself to other people because they don't have the same utility function as you do. And so once you know that utility function, that's like your North Star to say, all right, how am I going to now use my job and other things as a tool to get more utility, to view my career as not an end in itself, but a means of maximizing my utility. And that's because a job does something important. It turns our time into money. And it also gives us often like fulfillment, recognition, some other things that we value. But at its core, most of us work for money, because when I ask people, if you were independently wealthy, what would your life look like? Even people who love their jobs, and I do love my job, very few people say like, oh, I would be doing that 60 hours a week. They say I would be doing that for 10 hours a week, maybe 15 hours a week, right? But there's so many other things that I would be doing. And that tells you that really the core purpose of your job is to turn your time into money. And that's why so many moms go into more practical fields after they have kids, because they say, look, doing my passion job was not converting my time to money effectively. And now I have other places I want to get my fulfillment, like time with my kids. So this concept helps you map out a career that works for you instead of just you working for your job.
So can you tell us about, you're in the Amtrak bathroom.
Yes.
Right? That's a breaking moment. Did you apply this utility function idea to figure out the best path out of this untenable situation you're in? What was your utility function that you weren't serving?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would love to say that all of my choices were really strategic, but I feel like I only saw in retrospect how much that whole setup was not working for me. And so, spoiler alert from the book, I ended up getting divorced and moving to Philadelphia and trading that 2.5-hour commute for a 7-minute bike commute. And things got so much easier for me, and I was so much happier, and I was such a better mom. And that was the amazing thing, because what had been holding me back was that I was like, oh, is this the wrong thing for my kid? And we just feel like we have to sacrifice everything for our children. And then what I saw is that my relationship with my son really blossomed when I was getting my needs met, because me being able to be present and relaxed and have fun with him was so much more important than these other markers of being a good parent that I was trying to preserve, like 2-parent household, right, or whatever. And that, I hope, is something other people don't have to learn by reaching that breaking point that I had to get to, right? Because I really felt grief for my former self, that I didn't think that I deserved change just for me. And it did take really getting pushed to the limit to make some of those changes. And so I saw in retrospect that it was like, oh, that life was not actually the life that I wanted. It didn't actually meet my needs. It wasn't actually sustainable. And the book is hopefully helping people get there a little bit earlier and kind of start to navigate through some of those choices. And the changes are going to look different for everybody. Not everybody needs to get divorced and change cities. But it's about really looking at your life and saying, is this meeting my needs? Is this a life that I can thrive in? Or have I set it up to kind of meet everybody else's needs but my own?
I think the idea of utility function, it strikes me, it has two sides. One is, we often talk about like what to add, what to take away, but it's not just, am I set up correctly and is what I do have value, but reflecting the value of things that other people may not value. We did an episode recently on kin keeping, the idea that, setting up the holidays and keeping the family together. And the thing that I took away so strongly from that episode is this work has value. Being the person who sets up the train set that everyone delights in, people don't take that seriously. They don't think that that is a utility function. But it is one of those things that as you look back on your life, like the magic of the holidays that my mother and grandmother created, or passing down family handwritten recipes and knowing that we have the fiesta cake at every family party, that those things have value in a way that is worth categorizing as well. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So I talk about it as like that those things are actual economic production. Because if you think about it, if you go to work and you get a paycheck and then you buy stuff, we understand that you've participated in the economy, you've created economic value. But we don't tend to name that when you set up the train set and the gifts under the tree and you bake everybody's favorite cake, right? But when that lands and gives people joy, you've created the same amount of economic value as if you used your money to buy a gift that brought them joy, right? So when we do that work in the household, that's why economists call it home production. We are creating economic value. And I absolutely think that we need to honor that. And we need to think about investing our time. So we have to ask, what is the return that I'm thinking I'm getting from this? Because knowing how much time with our kids has exploded. I mean, it's literally doubled from our mother's generation, from when we were kids. If you think about us out riding bikes at all hours and, no snacks, no water bottles. We must have been very dehydrated. We are now spending time with our kids. They come home from school and we sit down, we spend time with them. So that means that might crowd out some of that kind of aesthetic homemaking that our parents' generation did, because they actually were doing less of the reading the bedtime stories and doing the homework and driving to soccer practice. So I think it all absolutely has value. And I think it's also okay to kind of choose your own adventure to say, what investments am I going to make where I'm getting the highest return to my kids? And I experience it as the most joyful. So am I the person who it's making the elaborate Christmas dinner, or am I the person who orders the Christmas dinner from takeout, but makes sure that we all play a board game on the floor after we eat it?
And what you like to do the most enters the chat, right? In terms of,
absolutely,
we put the train thing under the tree because it brings me joy to see it. Or we make Christmas dinner because I love to make Christmas dinner. Or we don't because I don't really enjoy that part anyway. That you don't have to have the chalkboard in the laundry room unless you really dig having a house that looks that way and it brings you joy, then go ahead. But nobody has to do all of it.
Yeah, and we can't do all of it. So it's just that's our worst enemy, is instead of seeing those as the unique way that somebody chooses to maximize their own utility function, if we see like each of those things as objectives and we try to put all of those things in our time basket, they don't fit. So we've got to pick and choose what is going to fit in my time basket and what do I feel like I'm getting the highest return on. The same way when we invest money, we want a good return. So how am I investing my time? What is the stuff that is actually contributing to my utility function, my values, my connection with my children? And what is the stuff that I'm kind of internalizing somebody else's message about what it looks like to be a good mom?
Let's talk about the term collateralized marriage and the idea of gender role specialization. I found this theory in the book really interesting.
Yes, so important to talk about this right now because we are in a moment of nostalgia for the past around gender roles in marriage. And I think it's really important for people to understand marriage as a financial and economic contract. So when you think about the model, what economists call specialization, which is one person kind of went to work and one person focused on home production. So you're both contributing. Those are both economic production, but they're specialized domains. That's our kind of image of the 1950s. And the key thing for that is that for that to work, marriage had to be a really strong contract because it's really risky for one person to invest in public goods, which is the house and the kids and dinner on the table and the suit being freshly pressed. And the other person to invest in a private good, which is developing his own career. Because if you get divorced, which is what happened to many women, when divorce became easier in the 1970s, they ended up starting over with minimum wage jobs because they had not invested in their own career and in their own human capital. Because the contract that they entered into that they thought was secure, it actually changed. And now we have this insecure marriage contract. And I think a lot of women don't realize, because I'm part of the generation where we got the warning from our mother's generation where they said, don't let this happen to you. Make sure you always have a career. You always have the ability to earn your own money. And I think now there's some women who are kind of romanticizing that specialization of the past, saying, I would like to just specialize in the home production domain, but not realizing it's like a tremendously risky position to be in because you're not protected. If not just divorce, but death, disability, other things could happen. Your husband could get laid off. And so then the idea of collateralized marriage is that one of the things that makes women more protected is kind of assets in the household. For example, owning a home, because those are divided when you get divorced. And so I have a study where we show that when couples own homes, the wife invests more in home production and the husband tends to invest more in market work. And that has a benefit to him. He actually earns more because she's taking on the home production labor. So I think a lot of women need to do that checkup of, if you are staying home, are you collateralized? how protected are you in the case of divorce, but also, like I said, death, disability, and investing in a career. I talked about your career turning your time into money. I think of it as like building a money machine that you keep in the closet. Even if you want to step outside the workforce and you want to spend time investing in your kids, I think that's great. And the book goes into a lot of detail about how I think that has tremendous economic value. And I think it's been kind of poo-pooed by a lot of the lean-in kind of feminists. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you got to make sure that you have your money machine tucked away in the back of the closet in case you need it, which is that you've got your degree. And I talk about this one paper by a friend in the book that's called Degrees Are Forever. Diamonds aren't forever, degrees are forever. So by investing in a degree, investing in your career, you have a way to convert your time into money if you need to. But if you just invest in your children's human capital and you never make sure that your family invests in you, then if the situation changes, you don't have that money machine in the back of your closet.
You also talk about doing a little work on the way in. I mean, Margaret has joked about, don't worry if he's a good dancer, worry if he knows how to use a wrench. That you are entering into a contract with somebody. We're going to build a home together. We're going to raise kids together. How good are you at this? Are you up for this? And considering that instead of his eyes or her eyes, not to be heteronormative, right? Like you're picking a partner for a big, big part of your life.
That's right. And yes, of course, whether they're cute matters. But you know what? No one is cute when you're wiping their toothpaste off the sink. Okay. No one is cute when you're doing that.
It's true.
So that piece that you think is determining your value right now is not what determines your value over a lifetime. When we talked about, I love the reference to obituaries or, being the 80-year-old in the rocking chair in the retirement home. What's going to contribute to your happiness, your utility over a lifetime? Is this somebody who is a real partner in raising kids and taking care of the house? Is this someone who invested in my career, if that's something that I want? And I think we tend to select, I joke, we interview for the wrong position. We interview for the position of boyfriend because that's what we need right now. But we don't interview for the position of co-CEO of the household. And I think the questions we would ask would be a little different if we were thinking in that direction.
We're talking to Corinne Lowe. Her new book is called Having It All. We'll be right back.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
Let's talk about the idea of constraints. You talk about somebody saying to you, I used to have dreams, but now I have a mortgage. And I think that one of the mistakes that we make in this, I don't know how she does it, you can have it all idea, is that we forget about constraints. And I'm currently working on a show, and I keep saying, as we're crafting and creating the show, it can be anything, but it can't be everything. Like the show, we're making it up. It can be anything, but it can't be everything. And that is, I think, life. And the idea of constraints is you can have anything, but you can't have everything.
And that's so important for giving life meaning. I remember Steve Jobs gave this graduation speech where he said that like death is important for giving life meaning because it says you have to make choices and you have to choose the things that you value. And I think actually like having a budget and being financially constrained is important. If you think about billionaires who just can have whatever they want, it's hard for them to make sense and make meaning of their lives. It is important for us to say like, I'm constrained, but that means I have to choose what I value and I have to recognize what do I actually value. So I don't think we have to look at it as a negative thing, but our constraints are different from one another. And so sometimes when you see something that you're like, oh, her garden is so beautiful. Why can't I have the beautiful garden, right? We're not seeing that like, yes, she can actually afford the gardener that comes twice a week and trims her weeds and then like replants the flowers with the season. And so often we aren't seeing that people's constraints differ from ours. I tell a story in the book about being like a brand new consultant fresh off of graduation. And to me, I felt like I was making $1 million because it was the most money I'd ever made in my life. But I was living in an apartment far off, like 30 minutes from the city and had hand-me-down furniture. And I go to my friend's house and she's also a brand new consultant, same job. And I see that she's living in the Loop in a high rise and she has this beautiful furniture. And I was like, what's going on? And, she said her parents were paying her rent. And I was like, oh, okay, we're not all facing the same constraints. And so that's another important point about comparison. But it's also really important to get very clear on what are the real constraints versus what are the have-tos or the shoulds that we kind of build up and we structure our life around. Like for me, I would have said, well, my commute is a big constraint because it takes 2.5 hours. But that was actually a choice. It was my choice of how to optimize given the real constraints that I faced in that it was like, all right, there's not a good of a job that's available in New York City. And I have family reasons for it being hard to be in Philadelphia, right? So what I take you through in the book is actually naming the real constraints, the real hard limits. Because sometimes we say, well, my son has to go to soccer practice 45 minutes away, but it's killing us. It's destroying our week, so we can never have family dinner. And it's important to just slow down and say, what's the real constraint? The real constraint, we live here. That soccer club that we like is there. He likes soccer. These are the realities we're dealing with. But then we're still making a choice of how to optimize. Because sometimes that opens up that we might need to make different choices, especially in this period of life that I call the squeeze, which is when we're most constrained. It's when, work investments are happening at the same time as child investments. Our kids are young and we're just busier than ever. And if you look in the book, there's a graph that literally shows a mountain of time use. You are most constrained in that period. So sometimes in that period, we have to say, all right, are there ways to change our choices to make it feel less constrained, which is like, maybe we actually need to live closer to the job in a smaller apartment instead of in the nice house with the lawn that I would like to have. Or maybe we need to live closer to my parents, even though I might not want to in the long term. Because sometimes you're building those constraints yourself because you have this mindset of this is the way it has to be, this is the way it should be. And so the book talks you through trying to find those levers to pull, if there are any, where you can switch from something feeling really tightly constrained, where you're feeling like smashed, to being able to say like, no, I am proactively making these choices. I am facing constraints, but I'm making these choices to kind of live my best life amid those constraints.
There's also the constraint of thinking you can't afford something or have something that you want, like having somebody come clean your house once a month. Well, we can't afford that. Well, maybe you should go out to dinner 2 times less, whatever. You find the money because that's more important than something else.
That's right. You just said it so well that sometimes what we think of as a constraint, it is a matter of priorities. And if we decide this is actually a priority to us, it is possible. And when you're in the squeeze, I do recommend using money to make time if it's possible. And with those things like outsourcing, one of the things I want everyone listening to notice is that probably everybody who's listening takes their car to a mechanic to get the oil changed instead of changing their oil themselves. So even very modest income households feel like we can afford a mechanic instead of me needing to spend 2 hours learning how to change my oil. But that's actually a mindset that says men's time has value. And therefore, for male-coded tasks, it's worth it to pay an expert to do it. But I should be able to redecorate my laundry room. I should be able to organize the kids' toys. I should be able to cook the healthy meal every night, or I should be able to do this or that in the home. And that's where I say, again, we're still stuck in the 1970s where we sometimes don't recognize our time has value. And if it's worth it to hire a mechanic for $80, sometimes it may be worth it to hire an organizer for $80. And again, even when you feel financially constrained, because it's a matter of prioritizing and recognizing that your time and your sanity does have value.
This is something we talk a lot about in our lives, and it was very interesting to see how you approach it from a very data-driven point of view, but that aligning your values and what your actions are can be very, very hard as a parent. Because if we say our family value is, everybody likes to say, I just want everyone to be happy and healthy. But we're getting in the way of our own happiness by driving to 3 different sports activities all day on Saturday and Sunday. But it's skipping the step where we sit down and we take a really hard look. It's like making a budget, right? The reason I don't like making a budget is because we don't have enough money to pay for the things we want.
Yeah.
And so I want to skip the step where I investigate that, because then I'm going to have to. But my husband and I have been recently concentrating much more on our budgeting. And one of the things he said pretty early on is we have a storage unit where I keep the holiday decorations, because our storage in our house is extremely annoying. You have to crawl in on your hands and knees. And I said, as we were able to have a conversation about the budget, I'm not getting rid of that storage unit. I will stop eating before I get rid of it, because you don't understand. I don't want to crawl into the scary, dark crawl space to tug out Halloween decorations, but I like having the house decorated. That's getting in my... It's that step of having the conversation out loud of like, let me explain to you why this is a priority for me. My return on investment for that storage unit is hard for you to understand.
Yeah.
But you can see it when we actually look at the problem. And that part is hard to do. I understand why it's hard to do.
Yeah, and they do like, so when the kids feel and they have these memories of like, oh, the house is decorated for Halloween and it looks this way. It's like that is enabled by those choices that you made. But it is taking that hard look to say, with our time budget, are we spending our time budget on the things that bring us the most value as a family and as individuals? And that's why the analogy to budgeting is perfect, because one of the things that I recommend everybody listening to as a very first priority is to take your leisure time and whatever brings you the most joy seriously as important to fit into your time budget. Because when you read about personal finance, they'll often say pay yourself first with money. And so put it towards your investment priorities before you pay everybody else. And with your time, we often spend our time on everybody else's needs and we don't leave any for the stuff that actually brings us the most value. And so I say, if whatever you say, like for family time, this is what brings us the most value, we actually need to block that out first. And then we can see if the 3 different sports practices in the different directions fit around that, right? Or for me, if I say, this is the thing that fills my cup up. And when I'm talking about this, I really mean something that serves you as the primary beneficiary. I don't mean baking cookies for my kid, right? Or with my kid. Like, that's parenting. I mean, the thing that really fills you up, if that is never happening, if that's always the last priority, you need to re-budget your time, because we are people too. We need our needs met, and it's going to let you show up for the family. And so if you think of your time as a budget in the same way we think of our money as a budget, you want to align how you spend your time with your priorities and make the choices of, for example, outsourcing some things, for example, saying no to some things. Another thing I joke about is throwing out your houseplants, because sometimes we spend time on these time-consuming projects where we're like, oh, this actually is making me miserable. It's not giving me any happiness, but I'm putting a lot of time into it. And we've got to find ways to make space in our time budget for the things that really replenish us.
What do you hope is the primary takeaway that the reader who knows she's stuck in a situation that's not working for her takes away from this book?
If that is the person who's stuck, it's that something has to change. It's that you deserve change. It's that you being unhappy is enough to say that this isn't working and that things do need to change. And then I hope the secondary takeaway is that you can do it, that you have the skills and tools to make some of those changes, even when you're highly constrained. And so one of the examples I give of like, how can you think when you're very constrained and you say, look, I don't have the money to throw at the problem. Maybe I can't even get my partner to help, even though I talk about in the book ways to get your partner to step up more. What can you do? Well, I give an example of play I'll clean your house with one of your girlfriends. Go over to her house, drink a glass of wine, you clean her house. It's so much easier to clean somebody else's mess than your own mess. I don't know why. It's like a psychological thing. And then the next night she comes over and your kids play, because play dates are childcare, right? So the kids play together, you clean her house. The next night she comes over to your house, repeat, you clean your house. You both have clean houses and you spent 2 nights hanging out with your friends. So it's when you say my needs actually matter, then you start to get creative in figuring out ways to actually get what you need. But I think as moms, what ends up happening is we just keep going, and we stop being proactive about what we actually need. And it almost can feel disembodied. That's how I was in the Amtrak bathroom of like, oh, this is my life over there. And I'm over here wondering how this happened to me. And so I want women to really get back in the driver's seat of their own lives and feel like they are making the choices. They are steering the ship. I've mixed metaphors, but you get it.
We've been talking to Dr. Corinne Lowe. Her book is called Having It All, What Data Tells Us About Women's Lives and Getting the Most Out of Yours. It's a bestseller. I think you understand why if you've listened to this episode. And we will put the link to buy Having It All in the show notes for this episode. You can get it wherever you get books. Corinne, tell our listeners where else they can find you and your work.
Well, thank you so much, Amy and Margaret. If you go to CorinneLowe.com, that's my website. And so if you are interested in the time tracker spreadsheet, that's available on my website to kind of keep track of how you and your partner spend your time. There's other resources there as well. And I'm on Instagram, Corinne Lowe, PhD.
You know, we've been telling you all about time tracking. Here it is.
It's true.
Corinne, thank you so much. This was an excellent book, excellent conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corinne.